Shavua Tov.
Mati, please don't write that now.
I won't move.
I get the sitter. Please, Sean, you want to pass me the sitter? No, that big one.
You didn't get matches?
Made their matches. Yeah. So as we finish the Shabbat of Noach, we actually are tonight the 7th of Cheshvan, which in Israel, this is when they start praying for rain, because everyone has finally come home after the holidays from Jerusalem. So this is really when the true week, the true going back to work fully away from the holidays begins. So as we carry Shabbos into that time, very special, and we hope to be able to bring the energy, the blessing, the joy of Shabbat into our weeks.
Get off it now. Whatever.
Hi el Yeshua siyeftach v'lo yevchad ki yaziv zimras yadinoi vayehi li shua Ushiafte mayim besosoin mi mayinei ha-Yeshua ladoyinoi ha-Yeshua alamcha birchosecha sela Adinoi tzevavoi siyimanu mizgav lanu elehei Yaakov sela Adinoi tzvoi ashrei adam baitei yarbach Adinoi hoishiyah Hamelech Yaneinu V'Yaim Kareinu
Layehudim Haisa Ira V'Simcha B'Sesem B'Kar Kain Tilanu
Layehudim Haisa V'Yira V'Siyimcha V'Sawasain B'Kar Kain Tialanu Kais Yeshuai Sesa Uveshem Adonai Ekra Savri Moranam Barachato Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam B'nei Priagafen Barachato Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam B'nei Minei Psamim
Amen.
La 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 my la 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 my la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'nei Yoesh.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamavdil ben kodesh lechoel ben lechoyje v'Yisrael lo'amim ben yoim mashvi l'sheshes me'amaz Baruch atah Adonai Hamavdil ben kodesh lechoel
I know the brothers.
Yeah, like they call us
Maybe she
And now put out the candle. You take the blessing
I know her older brothers.
from the Havdallah for the entire week. Wisdom, faith, parnasa, livelihood, and all the things that we pray for and we need, obviously, we should get in this week. We'll make a bracha achroina, and then we will continue on with our story of the week. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam. Allah gefem al priya gefem al tumis hasada v'leretchem le'terecha b'shir tzitzim echad alav v'sen lachem v'yav l'sbeim teva. Nachem no anu Yisrael mecha v'yishlayim v'decha v'tzim v'shgank v'decha v'mdecha v'alecha lecha. V'nei yishlayim v'nakaydim v'hedi v'menu le'nu tzachah v'samchenu v'mrecha v'dusha v'tada. Ki atah Adonai tev v'metiv l'kev v'nelecha l'aretz al ge priya gefem v'chnei al aretz v'al pri hagofen. Let Dina take a seat. And we'll, tonight's story, I chose a story not from one of the Hasidic rabbis, but a story actually from a great rabbi in Tunisia. As we know, Tunisia, one part of the Sephardic world that had a very large and strong Jewish community for many years. There still is a Jewish community in Tunisia. Small, but it's a community that's been around for thousands of years. And the story goes about a certain rabbi whose name was Tzemach Tzarfati. And this rabbi was a well-respected rabbi in his city. And he would study Torah day and night. And in those days, there was no electricity several hundred years ago. If you wanted to study Torah at night, some people who had no money at all would try to read by the light of the moon. But it didn't last very long, and only certain times in the month. So you had to have fire. And this rabbi needed one night to light the candle. He didn't have where to start a fire. And he really wanted to study Torah. So he used to go to sleep for a little bit before midnight, wake up early in the morning, basically a little bit after midnight, and start studying, but he had nowhere to take fire from. So he remembered that his neighbor, his Arab neighbor across the street, is a baker, has a little bakery in his home. And he was probably the fire burning all the time in his oven from the day. So he decided he'll go and knock on the door of his neighbor and he'll get a fire from him. So he goes, in the middle of the night, he knocks on the door of his neighbor. His Arab neighbor fell asleep already. He hears someone knocking, he gets up, gets dressed, comes to the door a little bit grumpy. He says, he's his neighbor, the rabbi, whoever will respect, the Jew and non-Jew. He says, Rabbi, what can I do for you? The rabbi says, I need to light a candle. I want to study. So I need, maybe your oven still has some coals burning. We can give me a little bit of light. So he says, Rabbi, sure. And he takes a firebrand and he gives him, and he says, please go use it. Anyway, the rabbi takes it. He starts going across the street. Meanwhile, a wind came and blew out the firebrand. So the rabbi's thinking, he saw that the neighbor was respectful but wasn't so happy to be woken up. Should I go back and wake him up again? And he decides he wants to learn Torah. So he goes back a few minutes later, he knocks on the door again, the Arab comes out a little grumpy, he says, Rabbi, what do you want from me? We're just there. He says, the firebrand burnt out, please light it again. He says, okay. He goes back to his oven, he lights it, he gives it to the rabbi takes it. He's going, he's holding it, being careful that it doesn't blow out, and just as he gets to his door of his house, a wind comes and blows it out. Now he's thinking, what should I do? Should I go back? The guy was so angry at me. But I shouldn't go back. I'm not going to learn Torah tonight. I'm up. I'm not going to learn Torah. So he says, I'm going to go back. So he goes back. This time, the Arab neighbor is not too happy. So the rabbi says, listen, I know you're not happy in waking you up. But I promise you that if you give me another 5 rand, you light it for me, God will pay you in large weights of gold for doing this for me. Now he respected the rabbi. So all of a sudden his face lit up. He says, really? Rabbi says, yes, I bless you. So he says, Rabbi, not only will I light the firebrand, I see you don't know how to carry it well to protect it from the wind. Let me carry it for you. And he lights it and he carries it across the street. He goes with the rabbi into his house. He lights his candle and he goes back. He's the happiest man. He goes to sleep. He's a baker. He struggled. He sold a few pieces of bread. But he just made ends meet, but he was really having a difficult time. Life goes on. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Life is normal. He's selling the same bread he sold before. There's no blessing of gold and no big things happening. He's wondering what's going on. One day, about a month later, he's walking in the street. And he goes towards the marketplace. And the guy stopped him. He says, are you looking for a job? She says, me looking for a job? You know, I'm a baker. I bake for people. I make ends meet, basically. So the guy says, listen, I have a better job for you. I have a job that I'll pay you 5 times whatever you earn every day from baking. Are you ready to do the job? He says, for 5 times? For sure. Give me a few days. Let me find someone to take over my bakery. And I'll take the job. He says, meet me here in a week. A week later, he found someone to take over the bakery. And he goes to meet this fellow. The guy starts walking and weaving through streets and back alleyways. And at some point he says, listen, I can't tell you where I'm taking you. It's too confidential information, knowing what I have there. So I'm going to have to blindfold you. And he blindfolded him. And he took him. And then they come to a house, into a cellar. He takes off the blindfold. And in front of him is a table with gems and gold and things he never saw in his life. And he said, the job I have for you is that I need to separate all the gems and the gold, and by weight and everything else. He tells him what to do, and he works a day. At the end of the day, he pays him 5 times what he earned, or 10 times what he earned regularly. And then he blindfolded him. He took him out of the house, took him back to the marketplace. He said, tomorrow morning, meet me here at the same time. And this went on for a month. Well, he continued going back. After a month, he goes back one morning. The guy is not there. So he says, I earned a little bit. And I have something, but this is not the weight of gold that he was telling me that I'm going to get. The rabbi across the street. I mean, this is a well-known rabbi. He doesn't lie. This is not what he promised me. And he started to doubt. Maybe the rabbi didn't know this time what he's talking about. And this is what's going through his mind. 2 weeks later, he's in the market and he hears that there's a house at the edge of the town. Someone passed away, has no heirs, has nobody in his family, and a house is for auction. So somehow in his mind, it goes on in his mind, he says, you know what? Maybe this house is this guy who stopped coming to take me from the market. Maybe it's his house. So he goes to the auction and he starts bidding for the house, but no one wants to bid for this house much because it's a dilapidated house. Now he wasn't even sure, he never saw the house, but somehow in his mind he told him maybe this is the guy. And he bid, all the money he made, plus he pawned his bakery equipment, and he bought the house. He takes possession of the house, he goes in, looks for a seller, he finds a seller, he walks in, it's exactly the way he left it the last time. Gold, and he's a wealthy man. But he was thinking, now, if I go and start spending money like a wealthy man, everyone knows I'm a simple baker. They're gonna accuse me of stealing. Never gonna believe this story. So how can I do it? How can I take this money and make use of it? So he decided and I came up with the plan. He told everyone that he has an uncle in Istanbul, an old uncle who's dying. He asked him to come over and get involved in his business. And he's going to start taking trips to Istanbul. And every time he went to Istanbul, he took some of the gold and gems with him. And soon he moved over to Fortune, and once he was there, he built himself a beautiful palatial home. He started to do business and the gem business, and he became very wealthy and very connected to government and everything else over there. And he became one of the most important people in Istanbul at that time. Meanwhile, this rabbi, Tzafari, decided that the time had come, he's getting older, he wants to live out his life in Israel. So he tells his community, I want to go live in Israel. And they said, you deserve it, you gave so many years to our community, you took care of us. And they gave him a little bit of money, and they sent out letters to every stop where he'll go along the way that this great rabbi is coming, please take care of him. One of the places he was stopping by is Istanbul. He comes to Istanbul, and they give him a lot of respect, a great scholar and a rabbi, and while he's spending a few days there, he asked the people, is everything all right? They said, we have actually a big problem. The Sultan is not very friendly with the Jews, and he's put a terrible decree against the Jews that's going to go into effect very soon. And we've tried everything we can, and nothing is working. And meanwhile, we've asked the community to pray and fast, but we don't know what our natural means to do it. But there's one person we're going to meet. He's a very wealthy fellow who has an in to the Sultan, but we never met him before. We don't know who he is. We don't know his past. We don't know his history. So maybe, they tell us you're such a respectful rabbi and a tzaddik. Maybe you come with us to the meeting. Maybe you can help. So he says, sure. Comes to the meeting. And there, when they sit down to the meeting and this wealthy man comes in and he looks around the room and he sees Rabbi Tzafari. All of a sudden he gets off from his chair and he comes over, he gives him a hug. So dear to have you here. And the rabbi is looking at him, doesn't know who he is. Meanwhile, the fellow listens to the plea from the community, says he'll see what he can do. But first let me have a few words with this man privately. And takes the rabbi into the room. And he says, Rabbi, do you remember you had a baker who lived across the street from you? And you once gave him a blessing? He says, I'm that baker. Look at my eyes. You don't recognize me? I'm that baker. And your blessing came true. I know whatever I have is because of your blessing. Whatever you tell me to do, I am going to do. And the rabbi said, God put you here. You have to help the Jewish community. Get the king, the sultan, to take off the decree and make sure that the Jews are always well taken care of. Because not only then will you do a good thing, but this will help you hold on to your money. The money that God gave as a gift will keep on giving to you to be successful if you do this. And ultimately this end up saving the Jewish community. And he gave to the rabbi a big packet of gold to take with him to Israel. And the rabbi said, I don't want anything from you. That's all you have to do. I have enough what I need. Just take care of the Jewish community. And this is how the Jewish community was then saved. So we don't know. We go out in the world. We see a Jewish neighbor, a Jewish colleague, a Jewish friend. We see a Gentile neighbor. We never know that good act that we will do, that blessing that we give, the goodness that we share, the good word that we say. We never know what the end result will be. And that story we do know, but all of us have an unwritten story. So as we go into the work week, let's remember every encounter could be one that has repercussions that go way beyond today and way beyond what we'll ever find out. So may Hashem help we should all have a blessed week, a beautiful week, and only full of success, with happiness and joy and health and good things.
Amen.
So we'll sing. We'll finish off with Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Agiladi b'mei Yavoy Eleinu im Mashiach ben David b'meira Yavoy Eleinu im Mashiach ben David im Mashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, a gute Vach. All the best.